Welcome to the table, the podcast where we share real stories, struggles, and victories as we walk together in faith. Today, we're talking about singleness again, and specifically what it looks like to be single in 2026. We have the sweetest guest joining us who shares her honest feelings about where she is in life and gives some really great encouragement, not only to those who are single now, but to those who are engaged or married. I'm just going to get right into it. Grab a seat and join Jenna and I as we chat with this week's guest, Mason Price.
Hi, Jenna.
Hello.
We're back again. We have a guest with us today, of course. We're going to keep talking about singleness, and I'm excited to welcome Mason Price to the podcast. Hi, Mason.
Hey, you guys. I'm happy to be
So,
here.
we're excited to have you here. Grateful that you said yes, and that you're going to come and talk to us and to our listeners about this topic today. I'm going to give our listeners a little bit of a backstory on who you are, Mason, and then I'll let you
Yeah.
talk about yourself too. So I was talking to my sister Ashley about these series of topics that we were going to cover, and just like thinking about people that could come and be our guests. And she said, hands down, I had to ask Mason. So I've met you a couple of times because of Ashley, but we are not super close. We're going to be a lot closer after the next 60 minutes. But I thought this was so sweet, and I hope it doesn't make you feel uncomfortable. If it does, you're only going to be uncomfortable for a couple seconds while I read the introduction that Ashley wrote that I should
Oh
share
my
with our
gosh.
listeners. Okay, so yeah, here we go. Sorry, we're just doing it. I'm sorry. So this is a little bit about Mason. Mason and I, Ashley, met through sorority recruitment. Our friendship began as an opportunity for me to be a leader for her, a place of comfort during her new season, and someone to be there for her when she needed me. The Lord quickly showed me that she was also there for me in those same ways. Mason is the kind of friend who's always here to cheer you on when you need it, to save you a seat at every table, to pray for anything at any time, and to love others unconditionally. Even in the midst of wild, busy Google Calendar filled days, she always finds time to love and serve others well. She is the epitome of being rather than seeming. Mason fills many roles and probably tell you she isn't qualified for any of them. But if you ask the people around her, they would tell you that her hard work, her heart, and dedication are evident in everything she does. I, Ashley, am so thankful for the blessing she has been in my life, and I hope you're able to feel even a small part of that today, too.
Oh.
I thought that was so sweet. It's not a joke, it's very true. But Jenna writes the most amazing, she doesn't even write them, she just speaks them, right, Jenna? I'm pretty sure you just pulled them out of your head. Introductions for guests. And so Ashley was like, "You don't know Mason very well. Can I give you something to say about her?" So I thought that was so
That.
sweet and a great way to tee you up.
Yeah. No, I had no clue. I'm going to have to text her or talk to her when we're done here because I had no clue that was going to happen. If I'm allowed to just say a couple good things about her, hopefully she'll listen to this later and she can hear. I just adore her, and she has been just such a mentor to me. And she's only a year older than I am, and that I don't think has meant anything. And so not only has she been such a good mentor, she's just such a good friend. And so I'm so grateful for her and for the opportunity that college, gave us to get to know each other. Wow. It's kind of hard to top that or move on from that. I guess a little bit about me beyond that. I just graduated college. I'm 22 years old, almost 23, getting there. So I just graduated. I just started my first real big girl job out in the real world. I just moved. And so I come from a teeny tiny little town in Middle Tennessee, and I just moved to Nashville. And so that has been, it's just been a lot. I think it's been a season of transition and a season of change for me. And there's definitely been some bad in there, but also a lot of good. And I guess the main thing that's really very relevant to what we're talking about today is that I am single. I have been for a while now. I spent most of my time in college single. And so, yeah. And like she said, and I feel, I don't know, I don't necessarily feel qualified to talk about this, but hopefully I think if it can resonate with anyone, then it was worth doing. So I'm looking forward to
I hope you don't mind me sharing this, and if you do, then I'll edit it out. But when I asked Mason, when I asked you to do this, one of your first responses to me was, "I don't know if I can because I don't want to seem like a hypocrite." Because I don't want to seem like the things that I'm saying don't match the way that I feel all the time, 100%. And I don't know a woman who is in any phase of trying to follow Jesus that can't resonate with that statement, right? Because that's one of my really big fears too. I think even in the podcast, I've talked about that here, is we all feel like um, a hypocrite at some point, right? Like we're not always just tickled and happy shiny all the time. That's what
it.
makes us human. And so I'm just grateful for you coming and sharing your experience. And I think it'll encourage somebody for sure. Before we jump into singleness, all of our guests that come on the podcast, we ask them 3 questions. So we're going to go through those 3 questions. The very first one is, tell us what's something that you have been doing in the last couple of weeks, last couple of days, last couple of months to fuel your spirit. Like, what is filling you and your spirit?
Yeah. Um, One thing about me, and you may pick up on this throughout the podcast, is that consistency sometimes can be really hard for me. And it's just part of, I struggle to keep up with a routine. So I'll like get really going into one thing or another, like maybe reading my Bible every day, and then I kind of fall off. And so one thing that's been really helpful for me recently, though, is I got not even a new Bible study. It's actually something I've had on my shelf forever. But I'm the kind of person where music means a lot to me. I listen to a lot of music. I sit at my desk at work all day and I have music playing. And so this Bible study is it's all hymns, right? So it's all based on hymns. So it's a day by day, and it'll give me a hymn for the day. And even too, I'll go ahead and say this, I'm the kind of person who typically leans towards like modern music, our worship songs that we hear that are coming out, a little bit of Forest Frank, a little bit of Hillsong. And so hymns for me, it's kind of just not something I hear a lot of, but I've found, so this Bible study it'll give you the hymn, which I think kind of reading out the lyrics sometimes is really impactful, but it also goes beyond that into the story of the author and how that hymn came to be. And just kind of reading some of these stories is giving me a new appreciation. I think for some of these songs I didn't necessarily appreciate before. So I think that's done a lot to feed me. And that also has kind of opened me up to some new music, to this new appreciation for these songs I kind of would have shied away from before. And so that's been something, and I feel like that seems small, but that's been something that's been really huge for me lately.
I love that. I'm not going to get on my soapbox of the Think Daily Devotional, but it's basically they do a lot of the same thing, and I love it so much. So I get it. I get why you like it, and it's really good. Okay, the next question is about fellowship. So, what are some ways where how are you finding fellowship in the last couple weeks, last couple days? What does that look like for you?
Yeah. There's a few ways. Like I said, I recently moved to a new city, so it has been difficult to kind of meet new people and I guess put myself out there, even just to find friends. And so I am working towards getting plugged into a new church, which has been really amazing, as well as since then, some of my best friends from college actually have moved not just to Nashville, but to my building. And so every week, it's coming up tomorrow. I'm super excited. We take turns cooking for each other. And so there's 3 of us, and we'll each, make a new recipe, make an old recipe, order pizza, whatever, whoever's cooking, it's up to their prerogative on what they want to do. But we all come together into the same apartment, whoever's hosting, and we just talk. We talk about our weeks. Maybe we might turn on a show, but typically it just kind of turns into a good time of fellowship, and conversations can range from anything to, here's this gripe I have about work today, this girl so crazy, to, what we're getting from the scripture we're reading or what we learned at church or what's, meaning a lot to us. So I think kind of having that time and space to be close with one another without any pressure, which way or another, just a fellowship has been really, really awesome.
I love that. And we have talked a lot about community, shocker,
Mhm.
and fellowship, and how hard it can be when you're in a season of transition. Like you named like six different transitions that have recently happened in your life, I feel like. And so, Jenna, like based on some of our conversations, and I can cut this out if you want me to, but I just think Mason is like she's the third person sitting here actually today that we've been trying to encourage in the last couple of episodes for young adults. Like as you listen to Mason talk about what's happening in her life and where she is, like what's the first thing that comes to your mind to encourage her?
She's doing it right.
Yeah, I think
That's
so
the
too.
way you do it. You have to put yourself out there. You have to find where the Lord wants you, one in church, but two in community. And for you to do something as simple, which it would not be simple for me to invite friends over weekly and say, sure, come into this mess of my house. But
Yeah.
I love that you're taking something that really is so simple and creating a community, and you can invite others as the Lord puts them in your life. I love that. You're doing it right. Stay the course. God will bless your efforts.
Oh, that means a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's fun to get to have somebody in the season of life that we've been talking about to sit here to say these things to someone in that season. So, okay, third question. I'll try not to derail us anymore. Third question, Mason. For all of these people that you don't know, me and Jenna, who you don't know super well, tell us something that you have been needing forgiveness for in the last little bit.
Yeah. And you gave, and you can cut this out if you need to, but you gave me like these questions ahead of time so that I could really
Yeah.
think on them. And this one's hard because not necessarily by nature of the question, because there's so many things, of course, I can think of, but just by like being honest with myself and
Yeah.
kind of thinking it through and sitting with that. And I think one of the big ones is a lack of patience, and just across a lot of different avenues, especially at work. For me, I find myself getting really frustrated when things don't go how I'm a big planner. I actually mentioned that I would have like a Google planner. I love that. I used to schedule my days by the hour. Um, and at this point in my life, that's not something I can do anymore. And that's not something, even when I do try to set up, that works out for me. And I get really frustrated and I get really impatient because it's not happening on the timeline that I expected it on. So especially at work for me, I just had a lot of expectations on where I would be at this point and kind of the work I would be doing, and I'm just not getting those. And I think instead of being content in the time that I'm in and the lessons that are being taught to me through, things not going my way, I've instead just been kind of grumbly and be like, well, God, I don't get it. And I don't know why you would make that decision, and so on and so forth. And so I think for me, the biggest thing I need forgiveness for right now is that lack of patience, that lack of trust.
I hate to tell you this, but I need forgiveness for that too, and I'm like at least 10 years older than you. So I don't know if that goes away. Jenna, does that go away? Do we get to stop?
It's
No.
something I've
Okay.
got to get used to, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're gonna be a lot further along because you're already asking forgiveness for it now. So you're gonna grow in that really quickly. I have no doubt. Okay, I that was great. You did a great job. I want to dive into singleness. And so,
Mhm.
like we do with most of our guests, I sent you a couple of questions just to think about, pray over. I don't know what order we're going to ask them in, so don't let me throw you off. I'm going to try
Yeah.
really hard not to ask you extra questions that I didn't let you prepare for. Um, but I want you to, I want to start with this one, which I think is a kind of a heavy hitter. But what are some of the lies that our culture tells us about our value and how it's based on our relationship status?
Yeah. And that one kind of made me sit for a little bit because I think that we hear there's so much is the issue. And
So
first off,
much.
I think there's a lot of if you're more valuable if you're in a relationship. And you see that, I think, just by the way sometimes things are set up. It's really hard to go do anything by yourself, right? You don't go bowling by yourself, which you can, but it's
Yeah.
difficult. And I think that it can kind of, I don't think you're even encouraged to be by yourself sometimes. That's something I really struggle with, is being by myself, kind of being, because I think that solitude is not a bad thing necessarily. Um, and I think that it is kind of marketed as such. I work in marketing, so if I talk about it at all, just know that's where it's coming from. But I mean, there are billboards everywhere for all of the dating apps. It's pushed on everyone. At this point, you can double date on dating apps. I've had friends ask me, like, "Oh, Mason, do you want to?" And it's just not for me. Not knocking that, not saying that those things are bad, but I think that it's just so pushed that a lot of times people who are single, I don't always feel like I'm getting poured into the same way that people who are in relationships are. And that even goes to church sometimes. And not saying that it's an
Yeah.
issue that church will, prioritize and give a lot of teaching on marriage or being in relationships. But I find that, first off, I've heard way more sermon series on, being married and preparing for marriage than I have on, living in singleness. And I feel that anything I have heard about living in singleness a lot of times leans into this idea of what is the best way, how are we going to prepare you to be married, rather than how are we preparing you to, first off, kind of live in this solitude. We know that Jesus went into the wilderness for 40 days and he lived in that solitude. And it's not something I'm saying that's easy, but I don't feel like we're always prepared for kind of the difficulty that is. Instead, it's, well, here's how to be, a better wife in the future. Here's how to be a better husband. Instead of here's how to be a better Christian and here's how to set yourself up for success in this time of solitude. If that makes sense. I kind of went on a tangent there, I think.
No, I think that makes complete sense. And this is not even recent. This was a long time ago that Jenna and I, had a conversation about being married. And when you look at in the scripture, there's not a whole lot about like this is the right way to be a great wife. You do all these 27,000 things.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple, right? There's a couple of scriptures about what it looks like to be a husband and a wife, but for the most part, you're just supposed to be a godly woman. And if you're seeking the Lord and trying to grow closer to him, and your spouse is doing that too, then you just end up growing in your marriage, right? And so I love that you pointed out this season is not necessarily to prepare you for marriage, it's to make you a better believer. What do you think,
Yeah.
Jenna?
I think what she just said should walk all over us and make us feel terrible as
Yeah.
believers. The fact that we don't encourage in that season, which culture tells us is a time of loneliness and a time of just you're not enough if you're not with someone else. I think you just hit the nail on the head, Mason, by saying the church doesn't talk about this enough. I saw the three young women who suggested these topics to us over the weekend. And you know what stood out to me the most is that one of them looked at us and looked at me and said, "We've never had anybody actually listen and answer the questions that we have."
Mm-hmm.
And that sat really heavy on my heart. One, honored that they would ask me and us, but two, that they would have to come to somebody they don't know to ask those questions. And I never want to be the person that doesn't encourage each person in the season that they're in. Because whatever season it is that the Lord has you in, there's purpose, there's meaning there. And I want to encourage you where you are, even if it's not where you want to be.
Yeah.
It should be my job as a fellow believer or as a sister in the Lord that I come to you and be the face of encouragement and one that wants to hold your burdens up, but also tells you the truth in love that this is this is where the Lord has you right now, and there's purpose in it. And it's all for his glory, whatever that looks like. And we may never understand it on this side of heaven. So I think what you just said, if anything, it just convicted me more than anything else that I've heard so far. That convicted me that we have a job to encourage each other in every season that we're in, not to move on to the next one, but to allow the Lord to grow you where you are.
Right.
Yeah, I've been saying in like intros to podcasts or in the stories when we talk about the next thing, like, hey, don't count us out, because even though we're talking about young adulthood or even though we're talking about singleness, this is a conversation for everyone. And I think you
It
just
really
pointed
is.
that out, Jenna. Like, if you have been married for 30 years, hopefully listening to Mason and her experience um, puts like a fire in you to encourage whoever you're around in the season that you're in. I think that's a great reminder, Jenna. Okay, Mason, what I'm trying to think which question do I want to ask you next. I think I'm gonna say let's keep going on this like single married train for a second. What is something that you wish that your engaged, married, dating couple friends knew about the season of life that you're in?
Yeah, yeah. Me and my sister, she's my best friend. I may bring her up again. I'd be shocked if I didn't. We were actually just talking about this beforehand. And, I've been in this past summer, or I guess this past year, I was in 5 different weddings. I've got a few more coming up this summer, a few more to attend. Uh, and at one point, she asked me, she was like, does it make you sad? She's a super candid person. And I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, well, you've been in a lot of weddings and you don't have anybody. So I was just wondering, if how you feel. Like, are you okay? And I told her, I said, and that can be very hard. And I know that my experience is unique. And for me, I've never felt super sad about it because first off, I love weddings. And I think it's really special to see 2 people so in love be able to finally tie the knot to join together and become one in that. But tonight when we were talking, because she just had a friend get married herself, she said one thing that she really missed and that I kind of resonated with is sometimes with her married friends, and with this one specifically, it's hard for her to feel like her friend can be, a wife and her friend. Like it only ever feels like she's just a wife now. And so if they want to hang out, the friend has to bring her husband. Or, if you have something going on, it's like, well, hey, can, my significant other come along. And I think that's really important. Something sometimes that I wish that my dating, married, engaged friends knew is that first off, I love you and I want to be around you. And so if that means that I got to hang out with your significant other, that's okay. Yeah. But I miss that time because we were friends before that point. For me, especially with a lot of my friends. And like, I know that you've come together as one, but like you're still, not that Ashley has ever done this to me, but you spoke about her. So I'm going to use her as an example. Like, yes, you're Ashley, who's, and you're married, but you're also just still Ashley. You're still the person I went to college with. And we still have a friendship and a relationship that's based on us. And it can sometimes feel hard to strengthen that when it's kind of hindered by this third person, even though, and I feel like I got to reiterate once again that like having that person is so good. And I love that. But sometimes you just kind of want that time with your friend, not your friend and.
Yeah. You don't you can shoot us straight. Like we can take it. You can just tell us how you really feel. And nobody is gonna be like, Mason said that she doesn't love our husbands or she doesn't love our boyfriends. Like, no, that's what we want you to do. That's what I need people to tell me is like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
Catherine, I need us to have a time where it's just us. Like I would really appreciate if my single friends said that, if that's how they felt. And Jenna, I'm going to ask you your thoughts. But Mason, listening to you talk about this, I remember when I graduated from college, all 3 of my best friends were engaged or married. And or they were all engaged. When the first one got married, it was devastating to me because she now had another, like, I couldn't be her best friend anymore. She had another person
Yeah.
whose needs came before mine now. And that sounds so selfish, but it was like, it was such a hard transition for me, being someone who is single and having the person that I've spent all this time with, like my go to person. So happy for her, tickled for her, want the best things for her, but just grieving what that friendship was and how it, kind of changed into something still good, but different than what I had experienced
Mhm.
before. Jenna, what are your thoughts?
This is a season you will experience for the rest of your life. Like it really is teaching you that seasons come and they go, honestly, because I remember those feelings too, being single and everyone else was getting married and I was going to all the weddings and wanting so badly for that for myself. But it also made me rush things and thinking that I'm behind or that I'm not doing it right or what am I doing wrong? The Lord hasn't sent me someone yet. But I think it also helps you prepare for what is to come down the road, whether that is marriage, whether it's parenting, whether it is seasons change all the time, not just outside the weather, but your life
Yeah.
changes constantly. And relationships will not and do not stay the same. None of them. I mean, even with my parents, they're my parents and I love them, but our relationship has changed as I've gotten older, as they've gotten older. It's just the way that life goes. I think the hardest part, and I think it's hard for all of us to just admit it, but when this starts happening, is that we realize that we are getting older and that things are changing and we are creatures of habit and we like things to stay the same. And yet the Lord is growing us, and we have to be accepting and willing to walk right through that. But again, it's hard. It's not an easy season, but I think the hardest part is letting go of what was and looking forward. It's really hard to look forward to what is ahead when you feel like you're being left out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jenna, you kind of segued me really well into the next question that I want to ask Mason. And you said that sometimes as things change, you might rush into something, or you might get into, like in this instance, a relationship that maybe isn't a relationship you would get into otherwise. Mason, what does it look like to guard your heart during this season in 2026? Because I would not for any amount of money go back into the dating world in 2026. So talk to us about what does it look like to guard your heart?
Yeah. I think the easy answer, or at least the short answer, is setting boundaries for not just others, but also yourself. Um, and what I mean by that is knowing, okay, if you're going to go out on a date, of course, when you're talking about others, it's good to know and have a game plan of, okay, well, if I like this person, what's the next steps? What do I need to know before we go any further? What am I comfortable with physically? Any of those questions, to have that in mind, so that way when you're faced with it, it's not a surprise on kind of your behavior. You have that game plan, you know what's going on. But also, I think it's really important, and something I found I had to do for myself, is setting those boundaries with yourself on, okay, what am I looking for and what are my non-negotiables? What am I not willing to sacrifice, regardless of how cute he may be? And so it's, for me, that's definitely, any man I am in a relationship with, it's really important that he has a relationship with Christ. It's also really important to me that he's funny and that we get along. And so, like, how much, my question is, where do I draw that line on what I'm willing to sacrifice? And then, okay, well, if I really like him, how much time do we need to be spending together? Because I don't want to find myself sucked into something so fast that all of a sudden I feel like I can't swim out. You hop into a riptide and then you kind of feel swept away to sea. This idea of kind of holding on to your life preserver and knowing where's too far to swim out to. I know that's kind of vague, but it really varies depending on the person. And so for me, it's just drawing those boundaries and not letting myself be surprised when I kind of get swept up in, I guess, the romance of things.
I think that's a great answer. And you use the word, or I don't know if you used it, but it made me think of like proactive versus reactive. And we talked about being reactive about sometime recently and like making decisions you might not want to make because you're just reacting to the situation instead of having that plan ahead of time. I did not ask you this. Like what does it look like how did you figure out what those things were that you wanted? Like how did you pick your non-negotiables? Like I'm not going to be with someone who doesn't XYZ. What are those and how did you
Right.
choose them? Like how
Right.
did the Lord lead you
I
that
think,
direction?
yeah, I think some of that is, well, I guess a lot of it is first off, kind of digging into the word and knowing like this is what a good, godly man, a good, godly person in general looks like in striving for that, but also, um, experiences, whether it's watching, friends of mine who are in love and thinking, wow, like that's really beautiful. I really want that. Or even past experiences that I've had myself. I've been, let's say, one bad date happens and I'm like, well, that's something I probably should have considered beforehand that I wasn't going to like. And now I know better. And sometimes it's uncomfortable to learn those things.
Yeah.
But sometimes it is kind of a learning experience. I think the easiest way is first off to dig into your Bible, and then you can't know what's going on in every part, at least in the relationships of your friends or your family. But I think sometimes they can draw those pictures that show you what you really desire, those different aspects.
It kind of sounds like you have to live in community with other people to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
love it.
yeah.
You teed me up so well for that. Okay, this is another question I didn't prepare you for, but Mason, we've been talking about young adults and like teenagers transitioning into adulthood and like trying to find your way in your newfound freedom. Like, how would you? Okay, I guess this is a two-parter. You just graduated from college and you were single the majority of the time. I don't know how long, but how did you like miss out? Was that a horrible experience for you because you didn't have a boyfriend during that time?
I think that I, for me, it's hard because it was up and down, right? Because there were times where I was like, if I had a boyfriend right now, I would hate it. I would be having the worst time ever. I
Yeah.
wouldn't have all the free time to like go run around and hang out with my friends and being so involved as I am. And then there were times where, maybe I'm at a formal dance or something like that, and the slow song comes on, and I get to move to the side instead of pairing up with my partner, and it's just kind of like, oh, like right now that would be nice. And, having a boyfriend would be really nice. And so I think it kind of came and went. But for me, I think a lot of the way I stayed away from it was I just had a really good community where I went to school and I had such good friends. I had Ashley, I had my roommates, and they did a lot to kind of support me when I was feeling low. Also, my family, I called my sister like all of the time. Um, and so sometimes it's a lot easier to tell family members those things. But yeah.
Yeah. That doesn't sound wasted. It doesn't sound like you're sitting here saying, I wasted 4 years of my life because I couldn't find the person that I wanted to find. Um, So I think that's going to be really encouraging. And I also really appreciate your honesty that it's not all like roses and sunshine and it's not easy. I think we want things to be easy. I want my life to be easy. I want to be comfy. And Jenna and I think, said this last week, like it's really hard. It's really hard to become an adult and it's really hard to be single. It's really hard to look for the job that you want, but you can't have it right now. It's really hard to want to be, in a different town, but you're stuck where you are for this moment. Like, I just think life is full of situations that are really challenging, and I appreciate your honesty, but also you sitting here saying, I still, like, all of that time was still really meaningful, and all of that shaped who you are today, sitting in this seat having this conversation. Okay. Uh, Here's my last official question that I actually prepped you for. When you feel lonely,
Mhm.
you mentioned like in your college years, kind of one way or another, like either everything is great or man, I wish that I had somebody. When you're now outside of college, when you feel lonely, how do you take that loneliness to Jesus versus finding some kind of temporary distraction or temporary fix?
Yeah, yeah. I think that there are two aspects of my answer. And the first is being really honest with God about it. I think there was a period of time where I thought that I kind of had to put on this fake contentment of like, oh God, like I'm single and thanks for that. That's just wow, and I love it, even though I was really hurting on the inside. Because it just seemed like you don't really hear people complaining so often, especially in church, about being single and how difficult that can be. Rather, you hear about what a good season it is and how you can really prepare during that. And so for me, I didn't feel like I could even talk to God about it, which I know is so silly looking back on it. Because now when I get to that point, I'll be like, and I'm praying and I'm like, hey God, so it just kind of sucks. And I'm just feeling really lonely and I don't really understand why you haven't like brought me someone yet. And yeah, so just letting you know, because what it comes down to is he knows already, which is such a comfort. And sometimes kind of scary, but there's, when I'm hiding it in myself, I might be fooling all my friends, I might be fooling whoever, but I'm not fooling God because he knows how discontent I am. He knows how upset I am. And so just going to him without honesty and in prayer and just saying, I need something, I need community. If anything, I just feel so isolated because I think sometimes that can be how it feels. Um, is, you go to bed at night, you don't have anyone to talk to, and it's just kind of like, well, now I just feel really isolated. And so, first off, being really honest with God and just telling him I'm lonely. And in that time, and this kind of leads into my second answer, is finding good community that you can not only be honest about that with, but who also kind of can help pull you out of that. And anytime I've ever run to God with I'm feeling so lonely, I need something to change. I've found that while I don't have a boyfriend, I have found some really good friends, or I've reconnected with friends who not necessarily commiserate, but I can be honest about that situation and they can really encourage me, but they also encourage me in my faith. And it a lot of times has drawn me back closer to God where I might, feel a little distant because I think it's just, I don't know if you guys know the term a little God wink, just like a little wink, but this idea that he kind of was looking down. He's like, hey, I heard you. And like, it's okay. And not only am I here for you, but you have so many good friends. And there are people out there who are going to love you in a way that is so different and special than maybe a significant other would, but in a way that's going to fill you right now in this time of loneliness and in this time of isolation.
That's so good. All right, I want to ask a question. I want to
Yeah.
let you know. Comment first if you have something you need to say. You're like busting to say.
Well, I have some thoughts, but if you
Go
need to
ahead.
go ahead. Well, my
Yeah,
first
no, go
one
ahead.
is that when Mason, when you say things, it reminds me of when I was there. And my perspective was very much like yours well, you're doing better than I did because I wanted to complain about it and I wanted to fuss about it and I wanted to commiserate with others about the fact that we weren't there yet. And I really, really wish that I would have spent that time better instead of seeing it as such a lonely season, because I wasn't lonely. I was longing for
Mhm.
someone to fill that empty space that I thought needed to be there. And so I would allow people that didn't need to be there in that empty space. And I didn't need somebody else to be complete. I didn't need somebody to lean on because I already had the Lord. And I took that for granted during that season. I really took it for granted. I took the Lord for granted. I took that time of singleness and I didn't waste it, but I didn't spend it the way that I think the Lord would have rather me do so. Because on this side of singleness, now that I'm married and have 5 children and it is really busy and I'm finally catching up, I am finding time to study the word. I'm seeing how important all these scriptures are and raising my kids or even being married to my husband now. Like I needed that single time to prepare my heart in the word. I needed to know the Lord. I needed to know what godly parenting looked like. I needed to know what a godly marriage looked like. I needed to know how to encourage others and how to carry others' burdens. And here I am all these years later, and I'm realizing I could have spent that time so well, and I didn't. So I think I would encourage you to not try to fill your time or wish that someone was in that spot because the Lord has exactly placed you in this moment, in this season for a purpose, and He has a plan. And maybe who He's prepared for you isn't there yet. Spend your time preparing your heart for what is, what will come. And you be the best version of what the Lord wants for you to have, both now as you are single, but also down the road, because you never know what is going to be right around the bend tomorrow.
Yeah, I agree. And I think there are other comments that you've made tonight really, but in this episode, um, that made me think that you are using your time more wisely than maybe I did. Like you mentioned, what does a godly husband look like? Like what does a godly man look like? What are those characteristics? You know those. I got lucky that the Lord, I'm blessed that the Lord prepared my husband for me because I don't know that I could have told you exactly what a godly man looked like or what a godly relationship um, looked like in that season. And you also talked about like growing closer to him and getting in the word and learning to pour into other people and grow your community, all the things that you're doing. I think exactly to Jenna's point, like keep going. You're doing a great job. I do want to ask you, so I think sometime recently, Jenna mentioned how people ask her boys who they're dating when they see them. And I want to know what do you want people to ask you? Like, do you want people to come up to you and be like, Mason, are you dating anyone? Do you want people to be like, Mason, are you so miserable being single? Like, what's the right question for people that love you to ask you?
Right. That's kind of hard because I don't think that question necessarily comes out of a place from most people at least of ill will. If anything, the worst it could be is a little bit of nosiness. And I
Yeah,
grew up here in Middle Tennessee. Southern grandmas are just gonna be nosy. There's no getting
yeah,
away from that. And I think when that question comes along, um, the when my answer is, oh, I'm not dating right now, I'm not seeing anybody, the better way to move forward is like, oh, that's good, instead of acting like it's such an awful thing, because I feel like that's what I've gotten before, and
yeah,
it's like, oh, I'm so sorry, you're gonna find your person, and it's like, well,
yeah,
I'm doing well, like I'm feeling like my person right now, and I feel like I'm content in myself, and I'm content in my relationship with God and my friends, that I don't feel like I'm missing out without a man right now. Which is not necessarily how I always feel. So sometimes that can, pour a little salt in the wound, or give me that option to commiserate. But I think that if we could change our frame of mind from when you find out someone you love or even someone isn't seeing anyone, of being like, oh, well, I'm so sorry, what a bummer, to, okay, that's like good for you. Like, great to hear. How are you doing? Um,
yeah,
and kind of switch it to, you know, checking in on that person. I think that would be the better way to go about it.
Yeah, like asking about you, right?
Mhm.
And like
Yeah.
you are more than your relationship status, which we talked about earlier, right? Like your
Right.
value is not found in who you're with or not
Right.
with. I think that's really helpful. Like that's the kind of thing that I need to know, that we need to know to love on and encourage the single people that we know in our lives to like not stop there. So it's what I'm hearing you say is it's okay to ask the question, but we
Yeah.
cannot act like the world is ending and woe is you when you say I'm not dating anyone right now. And be invested in you as a person. Like don't let that
Mhm.
be the only
Yeah.
question that you ask.
Yeah.
Oh, so good. Okay, Jenna, do you have any questions before I let Mason
No,
ask hers?
I think she answered a lot of things. I do, I, I don't know if it's a question or if something I would like for us to just kind of hit on is she was talking a little bit earlier about her friends have a mate and they're either
Yeah,
married or engaged or dating and she's not, and that she, doesn't want to jump ahead and get into a relationship that she's not supposed to be in. I thought about the verse, um, and this goes to community as well, but the verse is in Psalm that tells us that blessed is the man that walks not in the counsel of the ungodly, or standeth in the way of the sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful, but his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law he does meditate day and night. And I also thought about how when we're in that single season and how we do make list of pros and cons sometimes about this person we're, going on a date with, or, oh, I might be getting serious about this person. A lot of times we'll ignore some of the warning signs or we will jump past some of them. And I think it's so important going back to you building a community of friends and a
yeah,
community of believers that you do life with, that you're willing to ask them for counsel and that you ask their opinion instead of steering clear of it. And so just saying these things out loud and having these conversations and listen, friends, this is what I'm looking for in someone that I want to date or that I want to spend my time with, and that your friends are in agreement and hold you accountable to that. Like, of course, the Lord will, but sometimes we'll jump ahead and we'll ignore what we know the Lord wants for us. It's just
yeah,
human nature, it's what we do. So I love that you've pointed that out too, just building that community. But I would encourage you to take take their counsel and seek out people that will mentor you in these situations that won't just pressure you into, hey, you need to be married now, hurry up. Um,
yeah,
it's it's really those that will encourage you right where you are and that you can be honest and open with. And that is something I think that every person needs, but especially in a season when you are waiting for what's next. And that's we're all in that season most of
yeah,
the time. But in
Yeah.
a single season, I think it's really important that you find a community of people that will speak the truth and love to you, but and counsel you in the midst of your searching or looking or waiting.
That is really meaningful to me, what you said, Jenna. Just thinking back on the last relationship I was in and certain things, like that goes back to that experience thing that I was talking about, where, you pull of certain things where you're like, that's definitely not something I want. And you kind of don't learn until after the fact. And so when I ended that relationship, I'm talking to friends, telling them what happened, and they're like, yeah, we noticed that. And we just didn't know kind of how to come to you with that. And I think that's two things. Of first off, um, not, I think in the same situation, and sometimes it's kind of hard to approach that with a friend who has stars in their eyes and is, just so excited about a relationship, and not knowing how to burst that bubble. So I think like having friends in a community that know, like letting them know ahead of time, and asking for their opinions, because that was one thing too that I, looking back, never did. I never asked them, hey, what do you think about this guy's behavior, and hey, what do you think about this, and what do you think about him in general. So I think that's really good advice of
moving forward with, whatever that next relationship is asking your friends to be like, hey, the second you notice something, I don't want to hear about it after the relationship is over. Like, I would like to hear that ahead of time, and maybe that would save a little bit of heartache.
I love it.
That is, yeah, such a great point. Mason, I feel like you came on here to encourage young adults who are single, but what you have done, whether you know it or not, is you've really convicted me and hopefully other listeners by showing like we have a responsibility to our single friends and to our single community to encourage them, to love on them, to be honest with them. Like, I just think you've given me a lot of things to think about and how can I love my single friends better. So didn't know that was going to happen, but I'm really grateful for all of your honest thoughts about the season that you're in and just grateful that you were willing to share them here today.
Yeah, I don't I think this has really done a lot to we talked about feed at the very beginning of the podcast, kind of feeding your soul and your spirit. And I think this has really done that for me. So I don't know. I was so nervous about this opportunity, but I really appreciate that you guys brought me on.
You killed it. You didn't need to be nervous. You did a great job. Okay, last question, then we're going to wrap. I'm sorry. I've taken a lot of your time. Is there anything that we should have asked? Like, was there a question that you hoped that we would ask you today that we didn't ask? Or something that you wanted to talk about that we didn't talk about related to singleness?
I think that's hard. I think if I can jump on my soapbox for a second, the hardest
Please.
part for me growing up, I grew up in a Christian school, K through 12, and heard, what does it look like to be godly over and over again? And especially when you hear it over and over and over again, it kind of loses its meaning. But even if this resonates with somebody, when you're looking for your person, when you're looking for a significant other, something that has really kind of kept me on my toes and kept me, I guess, vigilant is the word when I'm entertaining anybody, are biblically the fruits, right? So of course we know the fruits of the spirit, and that's, your love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness. I'm missing some, I'm sure. But looking and trying to identify those features in your person, but also, and I feel like this is stereotypical too, but the fruits of love. And that's looking at, I wrote down the verse because I knew I'd forget it, 1 Corinthians 13:4. And that's, love is patient, love is kind. And that's one thing my mom taught me growing up, that, like I said, it kind of loses its meaning. But as I was getting older, and now that I'm kind of in this season of life that I'm living, I'm kind of really looking for that love, and recognizing, I think, is really important, that because we're human. And so of course, Jesus is always going to be patient. Jesus is always going to be kind. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love is, it doesn't envy. It doesn't boast, all of these things. And knowing that people fall short. So first off, having grace for that, but also looking for, when we do fall short, looking for in yourself, how do I get better? And also trying to make sure that, whoever you're talking to, whoever you're interested in, those places where they fall short, are they also striving to get better? Because if you are entertaining someone who is envious, sometimes you can have that conversation where you're like, hey, it's a little much. And they say, okay, cool. And here's the game plan. Here's how I'm going to be better. Or even if they don't say that to you, you can see them live that out actively. But when it's something that's just over and over again and you're not seeing any growth, I think that's one of those signs that tell you to run. And so I didn't have a good way to bring that up today, but I think that's something that has been really helpful to me, to look for those people who live that well, and when they don't, who are striving to be better.
I'm glad you added that because I think that applies to everyone.
Yeah.
I hope there are people in my life who are like, man, Catherine, you need to have a little more patience. Are you working on that? Can you hold me accountable? So I think that's great. Thank you for adding that in. Jenna, is there anything else in your notes or anything else that you wanted to ask Mason before we wrap up?
I don't have anything to ask her. I just want to encourage you. You are doing it right, looking to the Lord, keeping your eyes focused on Him, building yourself a community, and walking each step with Him. Stay focused on Him. He will bring you exactly what you need when you need it. He will take care of each season. You just spend your time now exactly where He has you, loving Him, seeking out more about Him, and building that community of believers that we all need. You're exactly where you need to be, and there's purpose in this season.
Yep, I agree. I second everything that she said. Thanks, Mason. Wait, I really appreciate you saying yes and coming on here and having this conversation with us.
Thank you guys. Like I said, I've had the best time. I feel like, I've been really encouraged. And yeah, I hope anyone who's hearing this is also encouraged.
Sounds good. Thanks. We'll be back again with some other topic next week.
Thanks for coming to the table. We hope today's conversation encouraged you as you seek Jesus in the big moments and the little ones. Check out the show notes for any scripture, resources, whatever we talked about today. Feel free to share this episode, leave a comment, ask a question, or share your thoughts with us. Come back and join us again next week. We'll be right here. If you haven't already, go follow or subscribe wherever you listen and find us on socials to catch up if you don't have time to listen throughout the week, or just to find out what all the next episodes are about. Also, we know you have things to say, examples to share, wisdom to give, so look for opportunities this week to share with those around you or even with us. All right, we'll see you next time.